911 operators, what call scares you till this day? I was a 911 operator. When I asked for the address, I got an angry man yelling, "Just get the fucking ambulance here." When I asked what happened, the caller said, "You don't need to fucking know that. I just need to know what happened so I know who to send and what equipment to bring, sir. Just send a goddamn ambulance. My kid's having a seizure. Don't send any fucking police." Don't send police, coming from a caller is basically them telling on themselves. Please send police, because the patient or the EMS crew or both could be in danger. So I passed a note to my partner, who was dispatching, "Send police department, extremely uncooperative caller." I tried my best to get through the rest of the questions. How old is the kid? Are they conscious? Are they breathing? Has the seizing stopped? Etc. I got nothing but verbal abuse. All I knew is that a pediatric patient had a seizure when the call started. There was yelling in the background, and there was some terrible yelling in the foreground. "Put your hands up." "Hey, what the fuck, bitch?" And that was it. Police had the caller. The patient ended up being a toddler, who had been beaten to within an inch of their life by that asshole. That was terrifying and sad, and I hugged my own kid a little tighter that night. Do operators ever learn the outcome of patients? I feel like the unknown would eat at me. Sometimes we do. Unfortunately, all we knew about this kid is that they went lights and sirens to the nearest hospital and were transferred to Children's during the night. From there, we got no follow-up. Former 911 operator here. Sometimes the calls that stick with you aren't the most physically traumatic. I once had a call from a 17-year-old kid who came home from a sleepover to find that his mother had moved. Just packed up his sister and everything in the house and left while he was gone with no forwarding address or information. She also turned off his cell phone that morning, so literally the only number he could call was 911. He was trying so hard not to cry and his voice was shaking as he kept apologizing to me for calling 911. He just didn't know what else to do and had no other family. She also took everything, so all he had was a couple of things that he had taken to the friend's house. He told me his 18th birthday was in a couple of weeks and he literally had nothing. The officers that responded took him to a shelter. I think about him often and I hope he's okay. Even if he was a kid who got in trouble or had behavioral issues, I can't imagine coming home to find your mother has abandoned you. I wasn't, but my dad's longtime girlfriend was a 911 operator. She was an absolute angel on earth, but she had the most heartbreaking stories. Worst I can think of was an older woman who called 911 because her husband had locked himself in their bedroom and refused to come out, despite her begging and pleading. The lady exclaimed, "He's in there and he has a gun, please hurry." While the operator was trying to keep her calm and talk her down, she heard the unmistakable pop of a gun. I can't imagine the wailing on the other end of the phone after that poor lady had to listen to her husband committing suicide through the door. Out of all the ones I read, this one put a knot in my throat. It was rough. I actually heard this story from my dad. His girlfriend never shared any stories from work, even with him, but that one weighed so heavily on her. She broke down one night and shared it with him. Family member worked as police dispatcher. Received a call from an elderly woman. Her husband had just been killed in their garage by an intruder. She heard it happening. She's wheelchair bound but phone was next to her. She frantically begged my family member to help her. While he was on the phone with her, the criminal cut her throat. My family member stayed on the line 3 more minutes until cops got there. He could hear the sounds of the attack, her gasping and gurgling noises. He kept telling her help was coming and to hold on. Amazingly, she survived. Criminal was later caught. A 17-year-old who just wanted the thrill of killing someone and picked them at random. He's on death row now. The details on how they helped keep her alive, I just can't even imagine calmly needing to tell someone to focus and apply pressure to a slit throat while, over a phone. That family member of yours is insane not to panic or give up and stay on the line. I know it's their job, but wow. He had spent several years as a radio operator in a Ranger outfit in combat in the Iraq invasion. He has nerves of steel, but he told me that call was one of the worst he's ever had. College Station? Around 2011? Yup. The Hall case. Didn't really scare me, but touched me deeply. Lady calls in, she stopped to visit elderly couple she knew because she had not heard from them. The elderly man had dementia. Apparently, his wife died in her sleep days before and he didn't realize and had been getting in bed with her nightly. This happened to my neighbors when I was a kid. Mrs. C had dementia, possibly Alzheimer's, and Mr. C was like a third grandfather to me. We hadn't seen him in a week, so my mom went over to see if they were okay. Mrs. C told us Mr. C was still asleep, so my mom called 911. I'm glad we didn't go in there because apparently Mr. C had passed in his sleep a few days before and Mrs. C didn't realize. Very sad for us, but I'm very grateful for the police officers who were so kind and made sure a little kid like me didn't have to see the details. Great memories of him, though. He taught me a lot about gardening that I still use today. My dad wasn't a 911 operator, but a deputy sheriff in a small town. In the late 70s, his sister caught her boyfriend in bed with another woman. She tried to emasculate him with a 12-gauge shotgun, but instead severed his femoral artery, and he bled out immediately. My dad was the only law enforcement officer on call that night. I remember him getting the phone call. He had to go investigate the scene, and then found his sister at a nearby bar. He arrested her there, and she eventually went to prison. I can't imagine having to incarcerate my own sister. He's a tough, honorable guy. Not one specific call, but suicide calls where the caller has no interest in seeking help but just wanting the police to find them before their family does. Knowing you're likely the last person to speak to someone and there's nothing you can do to help is pretty rough. A guy in my neighborhood killed his whole family, then called 911 and told them what he had done before killing himself. I always wondered what it was like for the person who took that call and the cops who showed up to find the scene. I knew the son pretty well. I was on my way to school that morning when the cops were rolling in and blocking off the street. Depends on the person taking the call. I could deal with the situations as they happened, but it started to wear on me after a few years, so I switched jobs. There were some people I worked with that walked off the job during training after taking a rough call for the first time. Then there are others that have done it for years and are either able to handle mentally or end up like those call takers that make the news sounding uncaring or impatient with people who are just trying to seek help on the worst day of their lives. I have two. 1. A call from a male who stated he'd found his girlfriend's son unresponsive. Very frantic caller. He and the mother passed the phone back and forth multiple times while I tried to give various rescue instructions. That part wasn't all that abnormal, but they later took the male into custody and I found out the initial caller had strangled the kid and then freaked out and called. Still makes me mad and it's been years. 2. Not mine, but a call they played for us in state training. An elderly man had a complete psychotic break and killed his wife with a hammer. Afterward, he calmly called 911 and confessed. The dispatcher attempted to give rescue instructions, up until he realized the damage was extensive enough that her head was mostly gone. Several of the first officers on scene were violently ill because of how bloody the house was. I could see why you'd be mad at the events in the first, but let me ask you this, what would you have done if you knew up front the guy strangled the kid? My job. It wouldn't have changed the outcome or the call, which is one of the reasons I can sleep at night. I'm mad that it happened, not at how I handled it. I'm going to do another one because this thread is a bummer and we all need a laugh. I am, I assure you, not making any of this up. There was a ranch on the edge of the city limits in my area, right by a large park and swimming hole. That ranch had a variety of livestock, but they had an issue with their pygmy goats. Every few weeks we'd get a call because around 100 little goats were roving through the park or down the street. One day, I took that call from a man in the park who had been chased by the goats into a porta potty. He was frantic, screaming, "You need to send animal control out here right now," and all the while, I could hear two other prominent, repeated sounds, the whack of little goat noggins rattling against the plastic porta potty, and bleeding. Malevolent, incessant bleeding. What did those goats want? What would they have done had he not found refuge? We'll never know. Every call where someone is reporting an unresponsive relative. Some will let you walk them through the CPR process if they don't know it, some won't. Every one of them you hear the caller at some point pleading with the patient to not leave them. Most times they do though. Parents, spouses, children, I've had them all call. Never gets easier. My husband died of a sudden heart attack. I feel terrible for the 911 operator who took my call. He had passed by the time paramedics got there, so the guy on the phone with me had to listen to me scream and cry and beg. I cannot imagine having to hear that at my job. So sorry for your loss. Hearing those things are part of the job. Hopefully the operator you spoke with was able to provide some comfort to you during such a difficult time, even if you weren't able to recognize it at the time. Former 911 operator/dispatcher. I only did the job for a few months, but there are two calls that stick with me. Call number 1. 911 terminal goes off and I answer. On the other end of the line there a woman screams, "He's graping me, please, help." I ask her if she's just been graped, as most people tend to report crimes as if they are just happening when most times the crime has already occurred and finished. She screams, "No, he's graping now." This woman was actively being graped while on the phone. We get police dispatched and try to locate her, but her phone is pinging in the middle of a cornfield and she's saying she's in an alley. Finally, after 10 minutes of listening to this woman being attacked, she gets away and gets to a house where we locate her. Her attacker got away. Call number 2. Due to a batch of heroin that was heavily laced with fentanyl coming out of Ohio, southern Indiana had one of the worst nights for overdoses. Narcan was scarce. For 8 hours we fielded an overdose call at least every 30 minutes. The one that broke me though came near the end of the shift. 911 terminal goes off and I answer. On the other end a 10-year-old boy states that his father is not breathing and turning blue. I ask if his dad was eating something or did he suddenly collapse, etc. Boy states his dad has a needle in his arm and he thinks his medicine is bad. I get the boy to unlock his door and the medical team and police arrive. Later the officer who arrived let me know the dad didn't make it. I cannot tell you how horrible it is to listen to a child as they watch their parent overdose and die. To those of you thin yellow line workers still working the phone lines, thank you for being the voice on the other end of the line. That first one is horrible, but how did she make a call while actively being graped? Did the rapist not realize? The best she was able to report is that her attacker seemed to be very drunk or under the influence of something. From what the cop told us, she had to have seriously screwed up the guy's face from the amount of skin and blood on her hands from scratching at his face. He must have been on something intense to need having his face clawed off be what she needed to get away, if it even was that. From what I could hear it sounded like he just quit trying. I honestly do not know what made him let go. One moment she's screaming, the next moment she says she's running down the alley away from him. We listened to the call recording 1,000 times trying to see if we could hear him say something or anything, and all we could hear were grunts and mumbled curse words. Hopefully they got him convicted from that DNA. That's the shit part of being a dispatcher. You rarely get closure. Be it a traumatic wreck, assault, kids, we often never find out what the end result is. I worked a small city and the cops often talked to us about certain calls, but even then we only knew what happened at the scene. Not scary, but will definitely stick with me for the rest of my life. Answered a 911 call about an unresponsive male driver passed out at a stop sign. I got the info and dispatched units to the scene. Realized moments later that the vehicle the caller described was my own. It was my 26-year-old son who had overdosed on heroin and Xanax. He was at a road, literally 100 feet from dispatch and EMS. We made it there at the same time. Narcan saved his life. He's currently in rehab for the next year, and is rocking it. Sounds pretty fucking scary to me. I'm glad he's on the mend. What's scary is that we get used to these types of calls. While we know each and every one is important, our response oftentimes is routine. I work for a small county agency that serves about 8,300 people. We get overdose calls on a routine basis. It's a horrible situation here, and that's the truly scary part. Former law enforcement officer. Had a dispatcher that needed some therapy after this one. Rural County Sheriff's Office is where we worked. Dead of winter. Roads were slick with a glaze of ice on top of the driven on or hard-packed snow. A rural mail carrier had lost control of her vehicle and rolled her Jeep Grand Cherokee on its top. Due to her delivering mail, her window was open and during the crash the vehicle had rolled on top of her arm. She was pinned but managed to call 911. While en route, we could hear the panic in our dispatcher voice when she said the vehicle had caught fire. On a summer day it would have taken us about 15 minutes running lights and sirens. Due to road conditions it took about 30. Every time my dispatcher keyed up on the mic to give us further information, I could hear the screams from the caller. By the time we got there she had expired. Our dispatcher listened and tried to talk to this woman while she was burning alive. She was absent for like a month while she got everything sorted out. I think of both of them often. Holy shit, that is horrible for all involved. Is therapy offered to the dispatchers or officers through the office? I hope the answer is yes. Typically no, not in small town podunk areas. Well, they have a hotline you can call and it's anonymous, and you get so many visits with a therapist before something is said to personnel. But if you go through an event, no superior is going to make you go to anything. She sought help on her own. Former 999 call taker here. One call that stayed with me was from a woman whose daughter was choking on pizza. She had the phone on speaker, which was needed because just after giving the address the caller just started screaming. The most hair-raising screaming I'd ever heard. Then she started screaming, "She's dead, she's dead, she's dead," over and over again. Her husband was following my instructions in the background, no idea how he could hear me over the screaming. The crew got there quickly, but the patient didn't make it. Just by typing this out I can hear her screaming again. I've always thought that would be an interesting job to have, but things like this make me realize I am not mentally strong enough to deal with it. I would be a wreck. These operators are not appreciated enough for the work they do. I hope that they have access to support frequently. There is a lot of support from specially trained staff at ambulance control and your colleagues, but you definitely need to be a certain kind of person to do the job. I left because my mental health plummeted. It's by far the most rewarding job I've ever done, but it was also the hardest. Apartment fire. Woman burned alive on her balcony because she was too afraid to jump. The screams over the radio of the fire crews trying to rescue her. 20 minutes later we get a call for a young man that walked in front of a dump truck on a highway to take his own life. While crews were responding to that, a 10-year-old girl who hung herself was found by her mother. I was still quite new the day all this happened, but I will never forget what I heard that day. That first one is astonishing. I assume the fire crews had some means of breaking her fall? It must take an absolutely crippling fear of heights or falling to choose burning to death instead. Hope can be a powerful thing, almost delusional at times. I'm assuming her thought process wasn't fully rational in those moments, and she probably thought, "They'll get up here and save me, I'm not going to die in this fire." Just last week I got sideswiped while driving in the city, and my brain's initial response was, "Just keep driving, there's no way that just happened." I wanted so badly to not have the side of my car fucked up that for a split second, I believed it. I can imagine a similar thing happening if my life were at imminent risk. I was a 911 operator. I get a call one night of a woman crying. Not abnormal, people don't tend to call 911 on good days. She's crying but trying to hold it together. Her son fell in the bathroom and isn't responding to her. She can crack open the door a little bit, but can't open it because he has fallen against the door and the bathroom is small. She can see in, a little bit. Her grown-up son is living with her. He went into the bathroom to do some drugs. I don't know what kind, but it was the kind you inject with a needle. We know this because she can see the needle hanging from his arm. I asked if this had ever happened before. She said yes. She gave me his age, mid-20s, and her address and some other things I needed. While I'm talking to her, I can hear in every word this woman speaks the tremendous love and fear of a mother for her child. Her son is dying, or is dead, and she knows it, but she can't do anything but stay as calm as possible to answer my questions. She was holding on, but I could hear it in her voice. He was in his 20s, but it was her baby dying on that floor and she couldn't do a thing about it. That was about 8 years ago. I still feel upset when I think about the call even now. Rescue got there and he did live, but that doesn't change how I remember feeling. That poor mother. I've seen threads like this where other dispatchers have said the worst is not knowing what happens after, cause when the call's done, they're done. Do you have to see out the info from UV or EMS to see what happened, or are you told? I've always wondered. I worked for a small department, and before I dispatched I ran rescues, so I knew the people. I'd text whoever was running rescue or ask about the run during my next shift. It was a small city, so it's very different from big places like New York or something where the volume is very high. This was over 10 years ago, but one night I had a call from a woman who jumped out of a moving vehicle to escape a sex assault. Suspect was an ex-boyfriend who had done it in the past. Luckily she was still able to run, but she was definitely injured and had no idea where she was, and this was when a cell phone's location was just the closest cell tower. She was, understandably, hysterical, and I spent the first few minutes trying to get her calm and quiet enough to avoid detection. She found one of those big green electrical boxes to hide behind for a few minutes while the suspect drove back and forth looking for her. Once she couldn't see the headlights anymore, she was able to coherently speak to me and we determined she was in an office park. There were building numbers, but she wasn't near a street sign, so that wasn't very helpful. I told her to check the nearest mailbox and to read me the address on any mail that she could find. It took her a minute or two of running behind buildings to locate a mailbox, but when she did we were able to pinpoint her location. Half of the deputies in my county responded, and the happy ending to the story is that the suspect was still in the office park, and when he tried to flee on foot, Chewy caught up to him and made the arrest. Oh, Chewy was a 120-pound German Shepherd who served a long and distinguished career at my agency. This wasn't a call that necessarily keeps me up at night, but it was the scariest in the moment call I ever took. Damn, I want Chewy's autograph. Chewy was the best police canine I ever worked with. His deputy would fuck with the dispatchers by showing up unannounced and letting Chewy come into the dispatch center while we were distracted. We kept treats in a couple of the consoles for visiting canines, but Chewy was like a ninja, and you had no idea he was even there until you turned around, and there was a giant German Shepherd in a perfect sit, just staring at you like, I dare you not to give me one of those treats.